Buddy here from Backroad Buddies of Redtail Lodge. And the video we want to share with you today is about our cameras. Now we use several different cameras to shoot video and still pictures for our YouTube videos and our blog posts. And we want to go through all the different cameras that we use and try to explain why we use different cameras and when. So let's start off with the iPhones. Now I carry an iPhone 10, and Left Buddy during season 1 was carrying an iPhone 6, and then when that died he replaced it with an iPhone 11 Max or 11 Pro, I believe it is. And so the iPhone 10 has two different lenses on it. One's called a 1x or a wide angle lens, and the other's a 2x, which is, they call it a telephoto lens, but it's still pretty wide angle. And the iPhone 11 Pro has 3 different lenses on it. So in addition to the 1x and 2x, they actually have a 0.5x, which is a super wide angle. And we actually like that one because it's just a little bit narrower than our GoPros that we have, but it's wider than either one of my Canon cameras that can get. So it's got a nice wide angle lens on it, which has a nice effect. So, I mean, the iPhones are great because they're small, they're convenient. We always have them on us, so we can always, pull one out if something arises that we want to capture. And we also take them along on our hikes with us and shoot still photos and video with them. And in addition, the iPhones do a really good job in low light. So if we want to take pictures or video inside of our van, which normally isn't very good lighting, we'll use our iPhones there. And especially since the iPhones have a great HDR feature built in, which means if there's a high contrast, so if you imagine yourself taking a picture inside the van where it's low light, but yet you can still see out the windows where it's really brightly lit, sunlit and scenery, it's hard to get an exposure correctly in one shot where you don't overexpose the view out the window and underexpose the dark areas of the van on the inside. So if you can see this picture that I took into the van, you'll notice this is without the HDR feature turned on, so the upper right corner is all blown out. It's way overexposed, and if you look through to the windshield to the garage door behind, that's also overexposed. And then now if you look at this HDR version, which what the phone does is it takes 3 different pictures with different exposures and then combines them into one. So, and I don't know how it smartly does that, but it does. It does a pretty good job. So now you can see that that upper right corner has detail in it now, and the garage door in the background there actually has more of a natural color to it. So moving along from the iPhones, we also have 2 GoPros. So this is the Hero 5 Session, and this is the Hero 5 Black. Now we don't use the Hero 5 Black a whole lot. Sometimes we'll take it along on hikes. And I think we did a time lapse at night once at Valley of Fire State Park with this, but we don't use that a whole lot. And but we do use the Session. Now the Session, what's nice about it is it's waterproof, so we feel comfortable taking it out in the kayak with us, so we use it as a body cam on the kayak or when we're riding our bikes. We also use it as a dash cam in our van, so when we're driving down the road we can get a nice wide angle view of the scenery that we're driving by. So that's what we use that for. And then the main cameras that I like to use being a photographer. During season 1, most of the still photos that you'll see from season 1 were shot with this Canon EOS Rebel 3Ti, and I've had this quite a while. Now it came with two lenses, and one is a 18 to 55 millimeter lens, and it's a zoom, you know, to get you to the different telephoto. So this is more of like a wide angle, so normal to wide angle. And this is the, let me get the numbers right, 55 to 250 millimeter. And that gives you kind of a telephoto range if you want to zoom in. And then I've also purchased separately this 60 millimeter macro lens, which is great for doing real close-up shots and having a really short depth of field and really nice pictures that way. However, carrying around the camera base and the three lenses weighs about 5 pounds. So that's a lot of weight. It's actually what we carried on us when we backpacked to the Grand Canyon from rim to rim. So that's a lot of weight to carry around. But really what I was mainly interested in is the 250 millimeters, which is a 35 equivalent of 400 millimeter lens. Doesn't always give me as much of a zoom as I would like when you're talking about nature photography, because the animals, you can't always control how close you are to the animals, and you don't want to get too close to them anyway because it makes them uncomfortable, and usually they'll take off on you anyway. And also for your own safety, there's some animals you don't want to get very close to. So I wanted a more powerful zoom, but I didn't want to carry yet another lens. And I came across the Canon PowerShot. I think it's the, no, I'm not going to get the number right. Well, here, this is actually what I'm shooting with right now. So let me read that. It's the PowerShot SX70HS. And this gives you what they call a 65 times magnification, which is really a lot more powerful zoom than this. Now, both of these Canons are what's called a crop sensor or a crop camera. And what that means is the actual sensor array is smaller than what used to be the size of a 35 millimeter film. So what that means is, hopefully I won't get too technical here on you. So the smaller your sensor array, and even though it's got the same number of pixels, so if you imagine, you know, you've got a 20 mega, well actually I think this Canon's an 18 megapixel and this one's a 20 megapixel. They're pretty comparable because it's, to get the 20 megapixels, they just increase the height, and the width is the same number of pixels. But anyway, so you have the same number of pixels, but you put it in a smaller sensor array. And what that really does is it gives you a much, using the same focal length of a lens, gives you a much, I'm trying to think what the right term is. It'll look like you are using a much longer focal length lens. So the way you can kind of compare the cameras is you convert your focal length of your lens using what they call a crop factor to get to a 35 millimeter equivalent. So this Canon, even though I said it basically, I can go from 18 millimeters up to 250, the 35 millimeter equivalents of that would, so if I had what's called a full frame camera, it would give me the same pictures that, well, there's some debate about quality and depth of color, but anyway, from what you would basically see would be the same as I think a 28 millimeter to 400 millimeter lens on a full frame camera. Now the PowerShot, even though the actual, I'll put the numbers because I don't know them off the top of my head, but basically the 35 millimeter equivalent is 21 millimeters all the way up to 1,300 and something, 65, I think, millimeter lens on a full frame camera. So it's an incredible amount of zoom, which I really love. So the PowerShot for season 2 is the camera I carry with me all the time when we hike, so I can get those wildlife pictures from a good distance away. Now, the disadvantage with going that strong of a zoom is I do almost all of my photography and video handheld. And when you get out to 65 times magnification, holding the camera steady at that zoom level is very difficult. So, but there is some image stabilization in there, which helps. So the pictures don't look too bad. But the video, you might see some kind of jerky video when I'm zoomed way in. But I'm trying to get that steady, but it's really difficult to do. You can try to lean up against a tree, or, it would be better if you were doing it on a tripod, but when you're hiking around, getting set up for a tripod, you would miss a shot. So you almost have to do it handheld. But I really love that powerful zoom. In fact, so much so that I'm not even going to carry I carried the Rebel with me with the macro lens, because the PowerShot, it can sort of do macro, but not really a true macro. But I found myself, I would never carry yet another camera with me on the hike, so I never had it on me when we were hiking, and I rarely used it. So for season 3, I'm not even planning on taking my Rebel with me, and I'll just stick with the PowerShot. Now, the other thing I don't like about the PowerShot is the manual focus. It's very cumbersome, and so I don't think I've ever actually used it on a shot. And so I've kind of learned to work with the autofocus, which is why I normally shoot in P mode, so I can do a spot focus and really control what's coming in focus. But there are some situations where manual focus would be handy, and maybe I'll learn to use it better, but I don't think you just have the same control with the manual focus on the PowerShot as you do on the Rebel when you're focusing with the lens, because on these it's real easy. It's just a little switch on the actual lens to go from manual to autofocus, and then you just turn the focus ring and you can quickly bring something in focus. But I'll live with the autofocus, and maybe I'll try to figure out the manual focus better. It's like you got to go into a menu, and then you use these up and down arrows, and it's really cumbersome to use manual focus. But we'll see how that goes. So those are all the cameras. And what I'll end up this video with is I'll actually show you some comparisons. So, it's one thing to tell you numbers, but another to actually see it. So I went over to the open space not far from our house and took basically the same scene with all the different cameras, so you can see the difference in how wide the angles are and what it looks like in the different cameras. So let's bring that up now. This is the iPhone 10 at 1 times and 2 times magnification. Let's see if I can zoom back out. There we go. This is the iPhone 11 at 0.5 magnification, 1 times and 2 times. Let's see if I can zoom this out. Okay, that's back at 0.5. This is the Session Pro, and this is at 4K wide angle video. This is the Hero 5 Black, and this is also 4K wide video. This is the Canon EOS with the wide angle zoom. The widest and at the zoomed in. This is the EOS with the telephoto zoom lens. Zoomed in. And zoomed out. This is the Canon EOS with the 60mm lens on. This is a video while still in the program mode. That was zoomed out. Now I'm zooming in all of the way. And zooming back out. Well, thanks for watching. And if you want more details, there's a link down in the description below to our related blog post, so you can get more details on all those numbers I was talking about. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. We'd really appreciate that. Ta-ta for now.